Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Action Channel. So today things are going to get really messy. And why? Well, it's a video about Steven Seagal and another big bad macho man. And you know this guy, don't you? Now you may not know his name, but you definitely know his face and his body of work. And who are we talking about? Sven-Ole Thorsen. So today I want to talk about a little incident that happened between these two guys on the set of the movie On Deadly Ground, where Sven played a big bad henchman and of course Seagal was the star of the film. But things got pretty ugly. Okay, so before Steven Seagal and Sven-Ole Thorsen beats the living crap out of each other, why don't you hit that like and subscribe button? Alright boys, take it away. These two action guys have never backed down from a fight. So what makes you think it would happen this time? So these two guys apparently don't like each other very much. But first, let's take a look at Seagal's background. Alright, you hard asses. So this video is predominantly about Steven Seagal and Sven-Ole Thorsen, their little interaction, and of course, their fighting skills. That also means we're not going to focus much on Seagal's movies. But if you're watching this video, you probably already have an idea who this man is and what he's done. So that being said, let's get to it. Steven Seagal was born April 10th, 1952 in Michigan. That means that he's 8 years younger than Sven-Ole Thorsen. As a little kid, he got involved with karate and other types of martial arts. But the man is mostly known for his Aikido skills. At the age of just 17, he moved to Japan to continue his studies. He also got involved with Kung Fu, Tai Chi, and he has a lot of experience in sword fighting as well. He is a 7th degree black belt in Aikido and was the first American to open an Aikido dojo in Japan. Eventually, Seagal returned to the US, in which he opened 2 Aikido schools. While teaching in Los Angeles, he spent the next few years getting some contacts in Hollywood. And in 1987, he married the actress Kelly Lee Brock. It was also around this time that he started working on his first feature film, Above the Law. The movie showcased Aikido on the big screen for the very first time ever, and millions of fans the world over said, "Wow, what is that?" Now, Aikido has been around for hundreds of years, but it wasn't until the late 1980s that it was really introduced to the rest of the world. Kinda like Arnold some years earlier had introduced bodybuilding to the world and made it much more acceptable to the mainstream. The movie Above the Law was a hit, and it definitely put Seagal on the map. Over the next 5 years, he did 4 or 5 action movies that was all very successful. And by the early mid-1990s, he was one of the world's biggest action stars. In his films, he definitely took the opportunity to show off some of his slick martial arts moves, while doing it in a very brutal but also entertaining way. But take a look at this man. You think he's capable of whooping some serious booty on a Saturday night? Yeah, you better not mess with this guy. So now that you know a thing or two about Seagal, let's check out Sven-Ole Thorsen, cause he's also a man that you should never underestimate. Alright boys and girls, let's get down to business. So the big question here, who the hell is Sven? Let's put it in very simple terms. He's a gigantic mother F that you don't ever want to mess with. Fair enough? Sven-Ole Thorsen was born in Denmark, which qualifies him as a true Viking. Now, he may not have been a big movie star unlike Steven Seagal, but then again, you don't have to be a star to be a tough guy. As you can see, Sven is more of a big piece of meat, and he has worked in countless movies as a henchman. In fact, he has appeared in more Arnold Schwarzenegger movies as an unpleasant fella compared to anyone else. And as you can see, there's probably a reason for it.
Come out! Alright, what's job?
Okay, so how good is the man? Let's check out the man's background, his skill set, his experience, pretty much everything about him, and what qualifies him to be a tough guy. Okay, so there'll always be someone out there that will say, well, he just have a lot of muscles, that doesn't mean he can fight. End of story. Well, not so fast. It's true that his background's in bodybuilding, but that doesn't mean that you're not strong. That's sort of like an old myth. He has the same height as Steven Seagal, which means somewhere around 6'4", 6'5", except Sven in his prime was over 300 pounds of solid muscles. Not only that, but he also competed and won the title of Denmark's Strongest Man in 1983, the same year he placed 10th in Europe's Strongest Man. Now that itself qualifies you as the opposite of a wimp. So is that all? Oh no, there's a lot more. The man is also a black belt in karate. He was competitive during his early years. In this picture, he was up against a second-degree black belt. Now, at the time, he was only a first degree himself, but he still managed to whoop his butt. So yes, the man is also a competitive fighter, and he understands the whole mindset. Back in the 1970s, he also worked as a bodyguard, and he was in very high demand. Later on, he moved to Hollywood and appeared in countless movies, of course mostly as a tough guy, but he has also worked as a stuntman and have done a lot of different types, including high falls. Now, since the 1980s, the man has played a lot of interesting and annoying characters, and his perhaps most memorable part has got to be as Tigress in Gladiator. Now, he was no stranger to the gym. In his prime, in 1981, he bench pressed 544 pounds, which at the time was absolutely insane. So when we add it all up, I think this man is highly qualified to get into the ring opposite Steven Seagal, wouldn't you say? Okay, so before these two guys started kicking each other's butts, on as well as off screen, well, where did they meet each other for the very first time? And were there any tensions between them? Let's check it out. Okay, so what exactly happened between these two guys? Well, according to Sven-Ole Thorsen in his book, he mentions something very, very interesting. And also, I believe that he told the LA Times the same story when he did promotion for the movie Gladiator back in the year 2000, because he played Tigress opposite Maximus in the film. So this is really interesting. So anyway, let's see what happened between these two guys. I should point out, when this happened, Sven was actually dating actress and singer Grace Jones, and Steven Seagal was married to actress Kelly Lee Brock. You probably remember the couple the most for appearing in the movie Hard to Kill. Okay, so the big question in this video, and what we're trying to answer: did Sven-Ole Thorsen beat up and humiliate Steven Seagal? Well, according to Sven, the answer is absolutely yes. The following I'm about to share with you comes directly from Sven's mouth himself, so let's check it out. The New York airport on the way back to LA in 1990, Grace and I, that was dating at the time, we met the action star Steven Seagal and his wife at the time, Kelly Lee Brock. At the time, she was a famous model and movie star. We had to get on the same plane. And along with them was the powerful Hollywood agent Michael Ovitz, that some of you might actually know. And in the late 1980s, he was responsible for starting Seagal's movie career. I had never met either of them, but Grace and Kelly knew each other from the modeling business in London and Paris, and apparently had investigated each other's bodies up close and very personal. Ew, nasty. Well, depends how you look at it, of course. Anyway, let's move on. Grace was very excited to meet them, and she went over there, and she also called me over. When I was introduced to Steven Seagal, I shook his hand and he started breaking my thumb. He kept doing it even though I asked him to stop. Therefore, I quickly stepped back, and in doing so, I pulled him with me. And then he moved his foot. And when he moved his foot, I pushed his foot away, so he fell. That means that he actually did not really fall, because I was still holding his hand, but I almost put him on the floor like the way you put a kid in a bed. And after that, I apologized in the most respectful way. Meanwhile, Grace, Kelly, and Mike Ovitz just looked at us like we were crazy. Steven Seagal got up all embarrassed. Yeah, he was definitely very embarrassed. The other ones just kept on talking like nothing had happened, but Seagal just kept looking at me, like staring at me. Okay, so what happened next? Well, they got on board the plane and started to fly back to LA. And while they were in the air, Sven, that's a little bit of a sort of a troublemaker, but also a charmer around the ladies, sort of went over to Seagal and Kelly Lee Brock. And he actually brought a fork. And then, because he's so big and strong, apparently he started bending it in the shape of a rose. And he gave it to Kelly Lee Brock. And she was like, oh, that's so nice. Now, Steven Seagal did not like that. I mean, technically, he was flirting with Seagal's wife. I mean, they were married at the time and all. So Seagal was sitting there like, And then Sven went back. And immediately he took the fork out of her hands and started to sort of like unbend or straighten it back. He tried, but he couldn't, because apparently silver, once you bend it, you cannot just, straighten it back. So he was really pissed. So at this point, I guess he felt that he had been humiliated by Sven, not just once, but twice. Oh, he didn't like that. So at this point, what do you think was on Steven Seagal's mind? So what happened next? Well, actually 2 to 3 years went by and everybody did their own business. And now all of a sudden Seagal was going to direct and produce and star in the film On Deadly Ground. And one of the big bad henchmen in the film was going to be, yes, Sven-Ole Thorsen. Sven describes the following confrontation with Seagal as cockfight in Alaska. Seagal wanted me to kick him because they have a fight scene in the movie. I knew that he wanted some payback for what had happened at the airport a couple of years earlier. And he wanted me to kick him, and I knew that he was going to grab my leg or something like that. So I kicked him sort of low, a sort of half-ass. And yes, he did grab my leg, and I felt right on my ass. All my colleagues and everybody just looked like, and I felt like a total idiot. And I could tell that I messed up because I did this sort of half-ass kick. I probably should have kicked him for real. Now, at least Seagal succeeded in getting some payback from the airport. By now, Sven's ego completely took over. I said, okay, now I want to show him and everybody that he will regret it. So I kicked Seagal so fast so there was no way that he had a chance to react. He was not even ready yet. He had a soft gut. He was not ready, he did not flex his muscles. So I knocked the wind out of him and he fell on the ground, completely white in his face. All the way around us was the movie crew, the cast and crew, and everybody was just looking. It was complete silence. Everybody on the movie set knows that the star is supposed to shine and you're not supposed to make the star look bad. And I was convinced that I'll be fired. And with the help of some of his students, Seagal managed to get back up and get out of there. And the assistant director told me that Seagal said that he was done with me today, but that we would have to actually shoot our fight scene, this Wednesday. We had rehearsed the fight choreography, and in the film, Steven's supposed to take this club and hit me with it. However, he hit me right on the main artery, on the throat area. So hard, so I actually passed out. I was only out for a few seconds, then I regained consciousness. And I got back on my feet and I continued the fight. However, I was not really myself for the rest of the fight and the rest of the day. After that, I complained to the stunt coordinator, that's not okay. And he simply just shook his shoulders and said, well, everybody knows that's what Seagal does. Now, in the script, Sven's character actually did not die during this fight scene. He was supposed to just have his ass kicked, and then later, towards the very end, he was supposed to have a big fight with Steven Seagal, which actually sounded pretty cool, right? Now, unfortunately, that never happened, because the producer said to Sven, no, it looked so realistic when Seagal kicked your butt the first time, so we decided that you actually died in that scene, which Sven was kind of upset about that because he thought he was going to work for another 2 weeks because he would have been paid $6,000 for that, and apparently he missed out on that. And also this big fight scene, which would have been really cool. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. Now, with everything that happened between these two guys, do you think that that's actually really what happened? Or do you think that maybe Seagal got a little pissed because he had been humiliated by Sven now, not just 2, but like 3 times total. And maybe Seagal said, you know what, let's just throw this guy off the set and fire his ass. I don't know, but it's very interesting for sure. Now, over the last many years, people have talked about the other incident that happened with Steven Seagal and Gene LaBelle. And there's definitely very different versions of exactly what happened. It seems like people tend to believe what they want to believe. However, it's quite interesting that not a lot of people have heard about this incident between Steven Seagal and Sven-Ole Thorsen, especially since Seagal was a big star at the time, and supposedly this happened after the Gene LaBelle thing. Now, of course, we always have to keep in mind that there's 2 sides to everything. And of course, in this video, we're focusing on Sven-Ole Thorsen's version of what happened between the 2 of them. It's interesting though, because there must have been plenty of witnesses, both at the airport, but also on the set of On Deadly Ground. On IMDb, you can find a long list of probably hundreds of people that worked on the film that must have witnessed something. So it would be pretty cool to see what they had to say about this whole thing. Now, before Sven left, his girlfriend actually came up to visit him on the set in Alaska. And one day he was out walking with her and Seagal came by. He was riding on a horse. And he, according to Sven, Seagal started flirting with his girlfriend. Like really, really flirting. Like to the point where it was almost too much. Sven, I guess, also felt a little humiliated. But he said he could not really do anything because Seagal was up on a horse. Nonetheless, nothing happened. And they just went separate ways. Now, personally, it's not like I'm rooting for anyone here since I don't have a dog in this fight, which is why I have at least tried to be non-biased in this video. Yes, it's true that Sven-Ole Thorsen is one of my fellow countrymen, so I should side with him, right? But at the same time, I never had any problems with Steven Seagal either. I don't really buy into all this hatred towards the man anyway. In fact, I'm actually a big fan of some of his early work, and I think most of his films in the 90s were awesome. However, since we're on the subject here with Alpha versus Alpha, please answer this question and comment. Who do you think would win a fight between Steven Seagal and Sven-Ole Thorsen? Two guys like this in the ring or in a street fight? It certainly would not be pretty, and I'm pretty sure one of them would have to pick up their teeth, or maybe someone would end up in a body bag. No matter who would win this fight in real life, I can promise one thing: it would be very, very entertaining. Okay, so I've never actually met Steven Seagal in real life, but I have met Sven-Ole Thorsen several times. But it's been like 15-20 years ago, but I went to a lot of events where he was there, so I got to talk to him and got to know him a little bit. And trust me, he was a big-ass dude. I mean, I remember hanging out in a bar with a couple of other guys, and we all looked at Sven as he left, and we were like, let's not try to take down that guy, because he is a big, bad, mean mother. Fucker. At one point, I actually asked Sven about this little incident, because this was right after the book came out. I think the book came out in like 2007. And I asked him about this whole Seagal thing. And I said, well, is Seagal really as dangerous and as tough as they say? And Sven just looked at me and smiled a little bit like, Seagal is nothing compared to some of the other guys that I have been up against in my life. So that's pretty interesting. Now, again, is it just all macho talk or not? Because everybody seems to. I mean, Seagal also lets out a lot of macho talk, right? So apparently Sven maybe does that too. So you know how everybody always wants to show that they're the big bad alpha in the room. But I think it was pretty interesting. So anyway, guys, on that note, I want you to comment and let me know, who do you think would actually win a real fight between Steven Seagal and Sven-Ole Thorsen? I think it would be one hell of a fight. I would pay a lot of money, but please comment, let me know, because these are two very, very different guys. What would a fight like this actually look like? Anyway, guys, if you like this kind of content, action movies, martial arts, all that, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe.